Today we're going to talk about the differences between the Tier 3 Navy SEALs and the Tier 1 Navy SEALs. And there's reason behind this, and so just bear with me. So there's a lot of the questions that we get, a lot of the questions, because we're focused on training, like physical training, the physical prep, all that stuff. And so with that, we get a lot of questions about physical prep, improving some of these things, or they're intertwined, or really it's like people are trying to find instruction and they say, hey, we're trying to find people, and we're finding people that are from the teams that say, hey, I'm a former fill in the blank. And in the military, in the teams, I learned shooting, mindset development, physical fitness, leadership, whatever it is, right? And like myself, I'm here saying, this is what I do. I do physical fitness, basically, right? And so I'm one of these guys kind of situations. So I'm saying, okay, got it, right. So I just want to kind of give everyone the lay of the land of kind of where that is. So if someone is saying, hey, I've done these things, I learned all this stuff while I was in the teams, and they're like, cool, they did it. They learned all that stuff, right? And they're going to learn some more, and there's some things I think, just for me, what I've experienced, okay? So for me, if we're talking shooting, one of the things is like there's a lot of levels to this. And there's a lot of levels to this because there's reasons of what the difference is of Tier 1 and Tier 3, but I want to kind of give the backdrop of where this is coming from. So mindset, like I said, levels to this, it said but, right? The best shooting instructors I've ever been around weren't team guys, weren't former anything. They were just like lights out shooters that just, like same with skydiving and things like that too. The people that taught me primarily weren't, well, I guess some were a lot of, some were team guys, but the majority of them were just skydivers that were so good at it, and they found they're safe. They were developers, right? They were developers in the skydiving community and so on. So that's what we see. There's a lot of shooting skydiving that is not former. So there are some for sure, but mindset development. I never experienced this when I was at Tier 3 side of any mindset development. And I only personally experienced it or saw it on the Tier 1 side. And now again, keep in mind, I've been out of the community now 10 years. So I don't know. I don't know for certain because I haven't experienced it now, but mindset development, really to me, when I'm looking at it, is like precise human performance development of critical thinking under stress, trying to make decisions in a CQB environment or something, right? Skydiving, try to improve that. Language development, improvement. I've only seen that on the Tier 1 side. So physical fitness, the military in no way, shape, or form gives us instruction on that. It doesn't matter if you're Tier 1 or Tier 3. That doesn't exist, especially on the special operations side. So anyone saying physical fitness, they learned all this stuff in the teams, I don't know where they got it because it doesn't exist. Even still, it doesn't. And then leadership, that's a whole Pandora's box question that leadership to me is like, if someone's saying, hey, I sell leadership in physical fitness, mindset development, or something like this, right? For me, I guess that's a little bit, like I said, it could be anything. We're talking about leadership, but that's what we're talking about in this. So the other differences big for me that I experienced, that's what I want to just explain, I guess. Here's my personal experiences, my differences, the thing I saw or whatever, Tier 1 versus 3, and you'll see then why, for me, we coach up. And that term will come up here in a minute. We performance first, always coach up to the highest athlete, because these guys often will catch up real quick because they're not competing for the same place. They're not the same spot. It's not a sport. Because when they realize they're not competing for the same exact spot, they're like, oh man, there's room for both of us? Yeah, man. And you see, and some guys are a little more advanced in one aspect of training. Some are maybe a little more advanced in recovery aspect of their training. And so then they get along and they learn from each other. And that's the idea here, is there's like a feeding pipeline and that's what Tier 3 and Tier 1 really is Tier 2, there's a lot of other videos out there to really describe the differences of them. But really the differences in Tier 1 to Tier 3 is what are these operators exposed to? What are they exposed in training and these sort of things? And so that's where I'll go, the Tier 1 versus 3. My experience on the Tier 1 side versus Tier 3 is, on the Tier 3 side, I only needed to hold a secret clearance because of my position of a young enlisted guy. I wasn't exposed to any leadership decisions, didn't get a clearance beyond secret, no big deal. But when I went to Tier 1 side, I had to get a top secret clearance, which was a bit of a process through selection. And it's like, oh, why? because when I got to tier 1, the amount of information that I was exposed to, I was like, oh, that's why they went through all these trouble to give me a background check for all this stuff. It's like, oh, okay, the responsibility is much higher, the information is a lot greater, the tasks are a lot more, right, at the tier 1 side. This was where I personally had one of the most difficulties with it. Was my experience on tier 3 was during the training, the workups, all that stuff, all the training was geared down to the new guys, instead of, hey, this is where we need to be now, right now. It's super dangerous. We need to be up here. We really come in really basic. And for me, it was frustrating. For my first workup, I was naive to it. My second workup, I'm like, we're at the same training place, doing the same exact scenarios. I'm like, we did this last time. Like, we're doing the exact same scenarios. Oftentimes the same TRADET staff. And I'm like, for me, that was frustrating, because I was like, hey, things aren't getting less dangerous overseas. Why aren't we advancing the training, you know? And so that was frustrating for me. So then I just got done working out, so I'm a little bit parched. So the difficulty for me was that on the tier 3 side. The refreshing side was on the tier 1 side. When I got there, everything trained up. And it was so refreshing, because we weren't competing for the same spot like at basketball. Like, we only put 5 people on a basketball court. We're not competing for that type of space. And when you see extremely focused, driven, intelligent, highly devoted men and women in their craft, it makes you want to be better. And so that was my difference there too. On the tier 3 side, I don't want to use the word never, but that's where like the tier 1, tier 3 difference is if you're in the tier 1 side, you're basically expressing to the Department of Defense, whoever it is, Secretary of Defense, whoever, like the people that are deciding, saying, hey, if you're tier 1, we're capable of doing all these types of jobs. If you're tier 2, you're very capable, but you don't quite have X capabilities. You're tier 3, also very capable, but there's certain things you won't do, right? And they'll go to great lengths so the other units do it. So one is hostage rescue. That's a tier 1 thing. I'll let that's just what it is. I'm not here to explain why and what it is, but that's just the fact. No tier 3 unit or tier 2 unit, unless they're attached to a tier 1 unit, is going to do a physical hostage rescue. Again, it's not a lack of necessarily as much as it is as the tier 1 guys. That's what they're trained for. They've gotten the skills, and that's what we're going to get to here. Same with free fall. The tier 3 side won't be doing any hey-ho or halo jumping into real-world missions. They may be training up for it and getting the basic skill, which is fundamental, and you need to do that, absolutely. Every frogman needs to be doing that for sure. But I wouldn't have gotten exposed to all the skydiving schools and the canopy control schools and the jump master courses and all those sort of things that they're actually not available had I stayed at SEAL Team 5. So it's the same with the hostage rescue. That's why hostage rescue, because we get different stuff. So the thing with the tier 3 guys is you're not going to do international. You're not going to be a response team to an international or national crisis. What I mean, like if you're if you're a SEAL team and you happen to be stationed in a country in Africa, you're SEAL Team 8 or SEAL Team 5, whatever, and you're stationed in Africa somewhere, and in that same city or very near you, a couple hundred miles away, there's an American that's taken hostage. You're going to sit there while the tier 1 team of choice by the government is going to fly them all the way from wherever to go do a mission that you guys really were right there for. Why? Because that's what they're there for, right? And that was like, for me, that was super satisfying when I got to, Dev Group, and I started experiencing that. Like, there's these political things that we get involved in, are like, oh, this is great, man. This is what I signed up for, man. Let's go to work. And you look back and go, oh man, the tier 3 guys don't even know we're going to go do this thing. They don't, right? And that's what was very satisfying. That clandestine stuff was awesome for me, The other thing was like, on the tier 3 side, not that the tier 1 didn't shoot a whole awful lot at its way, but I felt, the mastery of CQB, the mastery of diving. Why, right? SDV guys. Our SDV guys are mastered ninja divers, right? They're the ones that even when we were doing dive stuff, that's who we reference those guys. Like they're the badass dudes. The guys for CQB is a tier 1 side. Then like you look at like RSO mastery, like the schools that we go to or the things that we learn on the tier 1 side are often internal. Like the subject matter experts, like we'll say like in breaching, it's really cool, they're right here. Or other things too, you have access to. And I didn't have access to that level of mastery, that range mastery, or those schoolhouse mastery. I never had access to that at SEAL Team 5. I wouldn't have had it. And I'm super, super thankful that I got that opportunity, because I look back and I'm like, man, I'm so satisfied that I got that, right? I got to go do that thing. Here's a way of looking at it. The white side SEAL teams is tier 3, augment or support the tier 1, right? If we're down like a comms guy or something, and we know that there's a badass SEAL at SEAL Team 4 who wants to come over and support us within the mission set, like that's all, that augmentation happens, and we get some really stellar dudes that a lot of times they end up screening and end up making it in, right? And that was super cool, that self-feeding, that self-perpetuating pipeline of just bringing and scouring for new good dudes. And that was, being a part of that and recipient of that was such a really cool thing, because like I said, I met a bunch of awesome dudes that eventually came in and almost kind of started working for them. It's like a BUD/S instructor that almost starts working with guys he put through training. It's the same thing. It was really, really cool. I guess, like I mentioned before, again, the schools, the opportunities, the things, the vast number, and the breadth and depth of things to learn at the tier 1 side, because it's available to you, it's offered. Man, it's cool. It's the coolest. That's all I can say. It's the coolest, man. It's so worth the effort. It's so worth the effort to go that side. This is certainly not like a go do it. Like, nobody joins the military for money. Like, nobody. And I didn't. And you're not, like, people, like, there's a frustration because of, like, there's a little bit of frustration with the pay, I suppose, doing the dangerous things you do. There's a little bit more pay on the tier 1 side, just for just the amount of time gone and the various reasons, it's just, and the higher competence, higher school, higher risk, all those sort of things, I guess. I don't mean competence and like dumbness. I just mean some dudes are masters at the trade, I gotta work with freaking ninjas. So it was awesome. What am I missing here? I kind of mentioned before that, like, when you come back for training, when you deploy and you come back and you go to training, essentially that workup, we'll call it, you don't go to the lowest common denominator, the new guy. The new guy's like, you catch up, we'll help you catch up. That's the mentorship. They really do, because they got to catch up. And then the schools you come back to, like, I've done this and this and this and this, like, this is really, really, really cool. This is what I signed up for. And that also, like, it wasn't, I'm coming back from another deployment, doing the same workup, drudgery, salt mine. Like, I was like, you come back, you're never going to be busy, but you're also like, man, like, guys on the tier 1 side put a magnificent effort into the trips and making them useful, usable, and cool, right? Like, and that's kind of a big part. And I didn't expect that, or didn't experience that at all on the tier 3 side. I experienced the same exact training cycle, the same places, same people, same blah. It was boring. Let's see here. The thing too is what I experienced, and I guess I could have experienced at some point in theater, on deployments, whatever you want to call it. I experienced when, we'll say it, a tier 3 unit of ours was occupying a similar space. We came into their space, or they came into ours, and a tactical or an administrative decision had to be made. And because of our tier 1 side and we got priority. We had tactical priority, and that's awesome. And that's what you want. You want to be the guys that, hey, if this job pops, man, we need all the assets that we've got, even if it means taking yours and putting your missions on hold. It's nothing personal, but that's what we're here to do, And I thought that was pretty cool to be able to, I experienced I got to experience that in a couple different ways, from administrative and tactical, and I like worth it. Super. I can hear those jets right now. Right, that's part of the the available assets to the guys here. They're super close to their own, an airfield and whatnot. So all right. I think the last thing it's not super important, but I think that what I experienced was, and again, it's not that it wasn't present on the tier 3 side, but what I experienced, because I spent the majority of my side on the tier 1 side, was a lot of the guys like that I do, some of the guys I've kept up with or whatever it is, are extraordinarily successful inside, outside, wherever they're doing. And I think it's just a testament to just the type of people they are, just always trying to do something that makes them feel fulfilled. And I think that was the big reason. In hindsight now, I'm so thankful that I got to experience it. There's certain things that you look back and go, man, I kind of think I wish it had been differently. But I'm really thankful. Like I have, man, no regrets. I got the opportunity and the privilege to go do that and experience that at that level, and I'm thankful. And that's what I want to say. I want to encourage you all. Go do that. Get into our military and serve it. Join our special forces and serve it. And when you get to your special forces in the Army, in the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, and say, hey, I know there's levels to this thing. Where's the top? Go to the top. It's worth it. The men, the women, to work with they're the best. What they do, they really are. And it was such a breath of fresh air to be able to work with such good people. So that's the difference. Not that there wasn't really good people at the tier 3 side at all. I'm not saying that at all. My personal experience was that to me was worth it. And in looking back, I'm so thankful that I got to do that.